Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll have that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Saturday, once again. What's going on, everybody? And welcome to a primetime edition of the Winged Eagle Podcast for October 9th, 2021. This is a loaded episode. My God, there's a ton of shit to talk about tonight. I'm excited for it because I had no work obligations this evening, but I had some stuff to do during the day. I had to get up very early today and go to a meeting and whatnot. So I decided last night as I was prepping the podcast, I'm like, instead of trying to hotshot this thing and get it up at 3 p.m. local time or come up live, we're going to go a little later, do a little more prime time. That will give us some more time to talk and shoot the shit, that sort of thing. Maybe even open up a cold one. Cheers to you. For those of you who have one open, I've got a nice little Stella Artois in my hands right now. The only negative to going up a little bit later today is that apparently this podcast will be going head-to-head with the Game Changer Wrestling pay-per-view on Fight. Big Jon Moxley and Nick Gage match set there, along with, I think, Effie and Matt Cardona. Maybe a couple other kind of highlighted matches there that some people might be interested in, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. I still wanted to come up a little bit later in the evening and give myself more time to prepare, that sort of thing, and to give it more of a nighttime vibe to it this week on the Winged Eagle. So we have tons to get into. I'm going to kind of shoot the shit with you guys for a quick second, say hello to everybody in the chat and shout out the patrons and let you know what we got coming up this weekend, because this is the first of 3 straight live streams you will get from me today, tomorrow, and Monday. So we'll talk about that. And we got a ton of wrestling news to get into. We're going to get into the big Women of Wrestling and AJ Lee partnership. She is now in there, or AJ Mendez, I should say, as an executive producer, and them bringing in and signing Tessa Blanchard to be the face of the promotion. And things are not off to a great start so far with her nuclear shirt that they have released. We're also going to pay tribute to an absolute true icon, Hall of Famer Reggie Parks, belt icon, the man that basically this podcast is named after. He made so many gorgeous championship belts, including my all-time favorite and my top 2 favorite, the Winged Eagle and the Classic IC. We named the podcast after the Winged Eagle, and both of those title belts hang right behind me, along with the WCW television title that Reggie Parks also made. So we will pay tribute to him later on. We'll talk a little bit about Bubba Ray Dudley and Mark Henry's comments on Busted Open this week regarding bullying. That was some interesting stuff. AEW and Tony Khan have both been tweeting out some interesting stuff that's ruffled some panties. Not surprising. What doesn't ruffle panties these days in the wrestling world? We'll talk about those trigger tweets. We're going to defend the poor schmuck who asked Sonya Deville about the home invasion on the bump. Not a big deal, but we'll talk about that. Also, Sonya's getting back in the ring next week on SmackDown against Naomi. The King of the Ring tournament and Queen's Crown kicked off last night on SmackDown. I think one of those tournaments is an absolute joke. We'll talk about that. And, of course, the finals of both will be held at Crown Jewel. We'll discuss last night's SmackDown, which I do think was a good show, highlighted by a great tournament final there with Finn Balor and Cesaro. I thought Rampage was also really good. Daniel Garcia and CM Punk was tons of fun, and a couple of other fun things on that show, and a really cool tribute to ECW after the show. And we'll kind of preview Crown Jewel. We'll talk about this week's set of TVs coming up. We've got a big Raw scheduled for Monday. Next week's Dynamite and SmackDown are all jumbled up. The shows are bumped. Dynamite's going to be Saturday, or I think Dynamite's going to be Friday next week, going head-to-head. I'm sorry, Dynamite's going to be Saturday the next 2 weeks, but SmackDown's going to be bumped to FS1 on Friday. They're going to be 2.5 hours, and for a half an hour, they're going to go head-to-head with Rampage. So things are a little weird with the scheduling for the wrestling shows next week, and Crown Jewel this month falls on a Thursday, so things are a little bit odd, but we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the podcast as well. And I have no definitive end time here, so we will simply end things when we're done. If you guys want to ask questions, hang out in the chat a little bit. We'll do that later on, and we'll kind of just make it more of a hangout style podcast this week, because there is so much to get into. I have a feeling it's going to include a lot of discussion and feedback and input from all of you guys. So we're going to get into everything here shortly. Please do me a favor, smash the thumbs up button if you don't mind. If you're here for the first time, please subscribe. If you scroll down to the description, you will see links to everything, my Twitter and my Facebook and the website, where you can download an MP3 of this audio, or you can head over to your Spotifys, your Stitchers, your iTunes, your iHeartRadios, wherever podcasts are found, most of those places anyway, you will find Good Mic Work commentaries on there, and this episode will be up later on this evening in podcast form if you prefer to do the audio deal. Aside from that, I better get into what I'm going to do tomorrow. Big watch-along planned for tomorrow. We haven't, I'm kind of during the football season. I'm not going to do every Sunday, kind of like every other Sunday or every couple of Sundays or whatever. So I'm off tomorrow. It's October. It's Halloween Havoc month. We've got NXT doing a Halloween Havoc show in a couple of weeks on the 26th. So we've been talking about the watch-alongs lately and which one we will do next. And I definitely wanted to do a couple of Halloween Havocs, at least one, maybe two. So the one that we're going to do tomorrow, I basically had it narrowed down to 3, and I have chosen to do Halloween Havoc 1997. The link is already up on my channel right now. Just go over to the watch-alongs playlist. It's the very first one. Save that link for tomorrow, Halloween Havoc 1997. It was a great undercard. I think DDP and Randy Savage. We had the great Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero match for the Cruiserweight title. I even think we had Hennig and Flair on the show. And, of course, it was headlined by the ridiculously floppity-sloppity steel cage icon match between Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper that came just 2 or 3 weeks after Hell in the Cell, the very first one, where Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker changed the business. So this match was so bad and so horrible, but I have memories of it. I watched this match. I watched this entire pay-per-view inside of a double-wide trailer. So stay tuned tomorrow to relive my memories of that one. But the match was so bad, it even spawned one of Jim Cornette's classic rants on Raw, like the next night, where he just ripped a new one to WCW. I actually watched this just last night because this match reminded me of it, and I even showed Elizabeth. I'm like, get a load of this, and it was just classic shit. So them trying to pass that off as the greatest cage match ever 3 weeks after Hell in the Cell, come on. So we will have a good time reliving that pay-per-view tomorrow. Halloween Havoc 1997, same time that we came up here today, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. for our friends in Hawaii. And wherever the fuck else you are, I'm not sure what time that translates into. So that'll be tomorrow. And, of course, Monday night, we will be up here immediately following Raw for our Raw review. So 3 days of Greg. Hope you guys are ready for it. Let me cruise over here to the Patreon page and welcome and thank all of the current subscribers on Patreon. That includes Jordan Hendricker, Divine Ricks, JJ Legg, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Jay Smoove, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, Alex Dredge, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dogs Kennel, Devlin Husband, Ryan Y, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetster, Daniel Rodriguez, Barry MK, Josiah Blevin, Scott Moss, Domanian Ewell, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, and Blake Moran. As always, dudes, thank you very, very, very much for your support. Let me cruise over here to the chat. Got a few super chats I need to bust out really quick. Off Leather Wings is in early with a $5 drop prior to going live. Thank you so much for that, man. Big GCW show tonight. I just mentioned that. Moxley vs. Gage for the world title. Also an appearance by God himself, Mick Foley. Stay safe, Greg. Great show every week. If any of you have got that shit pulled up on Fight and you want to do some play-by-play stuff here in the chat, feel free to do that. I apologize if this podcast is going head-to-head and you want to choose them over me. No hard feelings. I'm cool. We don't freak out over here. Divine Ricks, what's up, dude? And thank you for $5 as well. Hey, Greg, had a blast Wednesday night at Dynamite, one of the best events I attended. That's right, you were there in Philly. I forgot. What was the best wrestling show you ever attended? Well, I was at WrestleMania 3, so that kind of takes the cake. But I've been at some great, great shows. If I eliminate that one, honestly, it might even be a house show. I've been to some really fun house shows back in like the early Attitude Era days. I've been backstage at events. I'd really have to narrow that down to the best overall show. I've been at pay-per-views all during the Attitude Era. I've been to multiple WrestleManias, multiple SummerSlams, multiple King of the Rings, or Unforgivens. Been to some cool shit. So I'd have to say WrestleMania 3, obviously. Other than that, probably like SummerSlam 2000 or Survivor Series 01. I was at those shows. I was at some great Monday Night Raws the night after Survivor Series when Ric Flair returned to the company. I was at the Raw a couple weeks after the Screwjob when they brought out the mini Bret Hart. I was at some crazy shows, man. I'd have to really narrow that down, but obviously Pontiac Silverdome will be taking the cake. George Morris, thanks for the $5 from you. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? WWE 0 out of 10. 3 guys arrested in my apartment complex. Sheriff's deputies were cussing at them and gloving up. Gloving up for what? Beating them down? I wonder what they were arrested for. Was it 3 of the 5 guys? Is there only 2 guys left? I don't know. Good luck, George. Your life sounds crazy, as always. Jet the Hawk and David Brown, very good to see you. From Scotland, Alex Dredge is here. Shayna, Sam, Ben, what's up? Cobro, JL, Sonic, Plays, Sam, Alex, Lambo, Jose in the house, Charlie, Jet the Hawk, Divine Ricks with 2 more bucks. Happy birthday, Eddie Guerrero. That's why Edge tweeted out Viva La Raza today. I was like, it's not the anniversary of his death. That's next month. I didn't even realize it was Eddie's birthday. Thank you for settling a question in my mind, Divine. I've always wondered what he meant by that today. Should have known. Happy birthday, Eddie Guerrero. Pretty cool that tomorrow we're going to watch one of my favorite Eddie Guerrero matches of all time when he faced Rey Mysterio. That match and Eddie trying to pull off Rey's mask actually is the thumbnail for tomorrow's watch along. So happy birthday, Eddie Guerrero. Did I say AJ Lee versus Sasha? What did I say? I might have said that. Who knows? Oh, Connor, you were also at Dynamite Philly, right? Oh, man, we're going to talk about that later on, I guess, after Rampage last night or on Wednesday when they taped it. They did a nice in-ring kind of tribute and celebration for ECW and ECW fans. Tony Khan came out. He brought out Jerry Lynn, Dean Malenko, Jericho, and Taz, who I think are the only ECW guys they currently have from back then. And they cut a promo, and Taz was saying fuck and shit and being all Tazzy and shit, and just talking about ECW and how cool the fans were. And then CM Punk comes hobbling out. Props to him for still continuing to sell the match with Daniel Garcia, and jokes that he was the ECW champion and he was left out. He feels a little bit left out, and they all kind of got a big chuckle. But what it reminded me of is that I kind of want to see AEW do more of that, because WWE, they used to have a blast back in the day. Like after Raw went off the air, just fucking around with Lillian Garcia or Austin or whoever, The Rock, and everybody got involved in this stuff, trying to get The Undertaker to do a spin-a-rooney, that sort of thing. It was so great that they actually released a fucking DVD about all of these shenanigans. So I think AEW should do similar things like this. If they have a reason to keep the crowd around, I think those fans would stick around, get on the mic, and just have a good time, mess with them a little bit, and do some of that. I think it would be fun. It would be another fun thing to look forward to when you go to an AEW show. Oh, not only do we have the entire show to look forward to, but they're going to entertain us when the show goes off the air too. So what they did for the Philly crowd would be cool to see more of that. I thought it was awesome. Today was Eddie's last match, and it was his birthday? For real? I don't think today was Eddie's last match. He worked into late October, early November. He had to have. He worked against Kennedy or whatever, right? I don't think today was his last match. That means an entire month would have to go by between him dying and having his last match. No, don't think that's accurate, but we will see. Oh, Jet the Hawk got the double shout-out. Well, you're kind of special. Speaking of double shout-outs, if you are a $10 or month or more subscriber on Patreon, or you've donated $200 or more lifetime, you got a second shout-out right down in the description below. Little known fact. Anywho, why don't we start getting into stuff here and rolling through the news, because there is a lot of it. I feel like we should start with the big AJ Mendez Women of Wrestling news. Now, the Women of Wrestling Superheroes is set to return in 2022. I don't even think I was aware, or at least knew, or maybe forgot that Jeannie Buss owns WoW. That's pretty cool. I guess I didn't realize that or forgot. I never really paid too much attention to them, but happy to hear that they're back and they're bringing in AJ Mendez as an executive producer, which who knows what this could lead to for AJ in the future in terms of getting in the ring and whatnot. Now, they did a big presser where it was AJ, it was Jeannie Buss, it was some other folks, but another name that was notably there in full gear, mind you, reminded me of Pac at the AEW presser back in the day. Tessa Blanchard, who apparently has been signed, and she's going to basically be the face of the promotion, I suppose, and she's going to be brought on in other roles as well, not only in the ring, but behind the scenes. Now, this has ended a year-plus long absence of Tessa after the fallout that everything went after the fallout with what went down with her last year, that she kind of did herself and her whole unraveling. And there's been a lot of talk about NXT signing her, AEW signing her. I think even despite all of the turmoil that Tessa was facing, a lot of fans were still expecting her to turn up somewhere. If she makes amends and, she apologizes for her, past behavior or sins, maybe there can be a healing period or a forgiving period there, depending on how bad everything was. But we never really got that. Didn't get too much of an apology out of her ever. And they've taken an interesting turn now with Tessa being not only the face here, but them already releasing some merch for Tessa, which is a t-shirt with the word nuclear across it and a bomb going off to, signify nuclear heat, which apparently she has. However, I'm not sure if really leaning into this is the right idea. This isn't your typical, wrestler heat. This isn't something that you can capitalize or exploit or say, ooh, we can make some money with this. She has wronged a lot of people and not behaved well at all. And I don't think it was a really good look. I mean, wow, Women of Wrestling here is not off to a great start with this new, 2022 project they have, if already the face of their company is already coming in with a ton of heat, and now you're going to play into it. I don't know if that's the best approach. If it was a different type of heat, or if Tessa had other problems or whatever, maybe you could play into it. But these are a little bit more serious allegations when it comes to the racist stuff and the bullying stuff. Now, for those who don't remember, it was last year, right before I think Tessa was about to win the Impact title from Sami Callihan. She tweeted out, it was something to the effect of, "Hey, women, try supporting each other. You'll see what happens," or something like that. Almost like, almost like in a condescending way. "Hey, women, try supporting each other." And of all people to say that, Tessa got a slew of allegations hurled at her right after that. So what followed that tweet was basically her opening up Pandora's box, and people were coming out of the woodwork being like, you are the opposite of what you were preaching here. You have bullied me. You have talked down to me. You have degraded me. A lot of women came out: Chelsea Green, Allison Kay, Renee Michelle, Priscilla Kelly, and a few others, detailing incidents of maybe bullying or belittling. And then there was the story from Japan where she allegedly, keyword allegedly, spit in a black woman's face and called her the N-word. I don't even know how you can come back for something like that, especially when she wants to tweet something, "Hey, try supporting one another," when she has behaved this way with countless eyewitnesses. This is not like some conspiracy or not one person setting out to damage Tessa in any way. It sounds like she did these fucking things. Now, the spitting in the face and the N-word stuff, that is almost too fucking crazy to believe, but people were there, they said that it happened. So instead of Tessa coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm trying to get help for my behavior," just saying all the typical shit you're supposed to say when you fuck up to this degree, apologize, it's not a representation of who I am. Now, of course, her apology would, not be taken well, because no apologies really are. Very rarely do you see somebody apologize and the fans are like, "You know what, that was great, we'll forgive you." It's super rare. Even if you apologize correctly, a lot of times people just aren't going to accept it. But Tessa didn't even seem to try. So I don't know if doing this nuclear heat shit is a really good look or a good idea, or if it's something that this all-women's promotion that wants to highlight women's wrestling and show the world what women can do when they're supported and they work together, and to have this person as kind of your cornerstone is an odd choice. However, despite all of the controversy, despite what an asshole Tessa Blanchard appears to be, she really is the biggest named free agent currently out there, and nobody yet has wanted to touch her. We've heard multiple different reports throughout the past year or so that some say NXT or AEW are interested, and then you'll hear another report that says they don't want anything to do with her. So it sounds like people haven't really been wanting to give her a chance. So now she's got a good opportunity here to kind of be, a big star in this Women of Wrestling pond. However, they might just want to be careful how they, market and promote her, because there's still a lot of hurt feelings there and a lot of bad feelings towards Tessa from not only the fans but her peers. And I saw nothing but mostly critical tweets especially when it came to that shirt. I think everybody was happy about the 2022 wrestling. I think everybody was happy with the AJ Mendez announcement and the partnership there. I think everybody at the end of the day is really rooting for this. But I think it's the Tessa stuff that's, a little bit, not sure if that was much of a good look. But luckily, nothing is going to launch here, or relaunch, I should say, until next year. There is some time for things to cool off. It's only October. We can forget all about this in a couple of months. But, realistically, how many of those fucking shirts is she going to sell? Who's going to buy that and wear it to a wrestling show, no less? I don't think you're going to be responded to very well. You might have your ass getting in a fight. Who knows? So anyway, it's not the right kind of heat, basically, is what I don't think they quite understand here. It's not something that I would really be trying to play into or make part of her character. This is something that she needs to work on and get better at. So we'll see how many women, have an issue working with her or whatnot. Obviously, this is going to get women some work here. So if anybody does have an issue with Tessa, they're probably going to swallow their pride and work anyway and just hope they'll stay away from her. I don't think anybody's going to necessarily turn down an offer from WoW to work any sort of a show or anything like that. So we'll see what kind of a backlash this brings. So far, it's kind of a combination of good and bad. Really good with the AJ stuff, really bad with the Tessa stuff. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes, and I'll be interested to take a look at it because I've never seen any show that they've ever done. So really wasn't aware much of them all other than, random clips on YouTube or Twitter, social media, whatnot. So we'll see. I'm kind of curious about it now that that's all going down. What's next here? Why don't we talk about... God, I don't know what I did. Usually I structure out my notes and I have kind of an order of what I want to do things, but I was running late today and I didn't really put it down. So what should we get into next? Why don't we get into, speaking of bullying, since we're on this topic, let's talk a little bit about Bubba Ray Dudley and Mark Henry. Now, they, of course, were on Busted Open this week, and interesting things are always said on Busted Open. And this time, they were basically going on wouldn't say a rant or a tirade or anything, but they were discussing bullying or hazing back in the day, back in the Attitude Era, when guys like JBL and others would, and Benoit and Bully himself, or Bubba, whatever you want to call him, about hazing and bullying and being a little bit harder on younger talent for what they perceived as a lack of respect, things like that. And we've heard stories about this type of stuff for years. The Miz had to change in a broom closet because he got chicken on something. The Undertaker has kicked people out of the locker room. You have to ask Undertaker to come back if you want to come back. They have Wrestler's Court where they take you to task for the dumbest fucking shit. And I've complained about that stuff before. I was like, I think these wrestlers take themselves a little bit too seriously sometimes when you can have a guy who's worked his fucking ass off his entire life, has nothing but love for wrestling, love for his peers, love for the business, and he comes in one day and he makes the mistake of forgetting to shake one or two people's hands. Next thing you know, he's blacklisted, and his 2 decades of hard work is now down the toilet because of a fucking handshake. This is ridiculous. This is high school nonsense. And I always hated some of the backstage etiquette. And back in the early days of podcasting, I used to say, if I ever would have became a wrestler, I don't think I would have lasted, because I would have gotten in so many fucking fights from assholes messing with me because I just didn't say the right thing or do the right thing or put my bag in the right spot. I'm always going to try to be respectful as absolutely as best I can. Anything that I do is going to be purely by accident, and I would hate to see my whole entire career be at jeopardy or be in jeopardy because of some silly, stupid fucking misunderstanding that got me a ton of heat and a bunch of people against me. Like, I've really never liked that at all. And whenever I heard about the bullying shit, when I hear about JBL being such a jerk off to people and whatnot, it's just, it's infuriating. So Mark Henry and Bully Ray are kind of from that era, to where I wouldn't say they were necessarily defending or condoning the bullying, but they were saying, you need to be a man, be able to step up, and when that stuff happens to you, you don't go and run and tell the office, you don't go tattle or tell the agents or tell Vince or anything like that. You take it like a man and you deal with it. And I guess, back in those days, that was the way things were done. And this is just typical chatter from Mark Henry and Bully Ray. This isn't anything that I haven't heard really either one of them say before. Mark Henry has terrible takes on certain things. I love Mark Henry, but he also, he came in very inexperienced and very green at the time, and all he knows is the way that locker room was in 96 when he came in and onward. So, his idea of what it was isn't necessarily the way it needs to be now. And this implication that wrestlers today are soft and whatnot, it was more of that, and I just don't get that. That's just not an environment that I think would have been healthy. I think it's an environment that has ruined or damaged or mind-fucked certain talent to where they haven't been able to achieve certain success because of kind of the situation and the political shit going on backstage. And sometimes bullying and hazing can get too much to where, they take it to so many different degrees. We've heard so many stories of people getting shit put in their bag. Mark Henry himself got shit in a sandwich, didn't he? Didn't they shit inside of his sandwich? You know, so Mark Henry appears to be nowadays be okay with these things, but back in the day, he was pretty fucking pissed about it from what I remember. So I'm not really surprised by anything they said. I'm not upset about anything they said. This is the way a lot of these old timers think. And that's just the way they think. It's not worth getting upset over, attacking them over. They've always had these views. And if you've heard either one of them speak before, this type of discussion, this type of language really isn't that surprising. So they still think it's perfectly fine for JBL to be an asshat to people. I personally don't, but we'll just agree to disagree. They're both still legends, so whatever. Fightful Select, if you are a subscriber, has got another report, kind of like a 3-part series here on a lot of Fox WWE USA relations stuff. Now, a lot of chatter. You can read that entire article if you want to hear more about, you know, how certain networks feel about the others' usage or promoting or Peacock or whatever. Lots of little details there. But the most interesting note that came out of that report was regarding MLW. And apparently, after all the chatter about the network's coexistence and whatnot, it was noted that MLW was close to inking a deal with Fox's streaming network, which I forget what it's called, Tubi or something like that. And when WWE got wind of it, they weren't too happy about it and voiced their displeasure. And apparently MLW didn't get the deal. Now, I've been seeing commercials for them on Vice, so they've got some TV stuff, but that's a huge fucking bummer, man. If they were set to have a deal here with Fox's streaming service and WWE helped put a stop to that, fuck you guys, man. Jesus. What is MLW to you? What is that going to do to harm you? My God. So I found that to be a bit of a bummer, but there were some interesting notes in there, and that was the most interesting one. Also, I don't watch The Bump, but WWE's got social media shows all over the fucking place, and they did another episode of The Bump this week. Sonya Deville was a guest on there, and they had I forgot the guy's names. The guy sitting next to her who I've seen before, I forget his name, and the other dude sitting way off in the corner. Just some dude, and they're talking about SmackDown, and they're talking about the home invasion, or when Seth went inside of Edge's house and made himself at home and walked around the home and whatnot. And the guy ends up asking Sonya, who is the guest there, hey, Sonya, how would you handle, what advice would you have for somebody handling a home invasion? And we all know last year, Sonya Deville had that very scary incident at her house. Mandy Rose was also there, where some fucker broke in and he was prepared to kidnap them, tie them up, and do God knows what to them, which is hilarious because when you look at the little fucking piece of shit, I think Sonya and Mandy would have beat him senseless if they would have gotten in any sort of a real fight. But that was very traumatic for her. She had to go to court. She hasn't been in the ring since then. And the fans on social media lose their mind over this and just start attacking the dude. Look, he just forgot. There was no malice behind that question. Not a good idea. He probably feels terrible. I don't even know what the guy's name is, but I'm defending him because there is no way he intended that at all. He did not. He just didn't kind of remember, or probably forgot, or maybe didn't even know about the real life situation involving Sonya and her home invasion. So to ask her that question, it's just bad timing. They put her on as a guest on the same week when they're going to talk about a home invasion. Maybe they should have thought this through. Maybe WWE should have thought this through, because on The Bump, you talk about all the shit that happened on TV, I'm guessing. So when they got to the Edge and Seth stuff, what happened that week? Seth went inside of Edge's house. Sonya is your guest. You have to ask your guest about that. The poor guy probably didn't even think. And you know what? Sonya's a big girl. She can handle it. This is not even really that huge of a deal. I don't even think it was insensitive. I just think it was, he didn't even realize. And I think Sonya was pretty cool with it. She didn't seem like she was upset. She answered the question. I don't think she went home and cried for an hour and a half about it. She's fine. Everybody is fine. So don't rush to her defense. Let's not be crazy outraged for no reason here. Sonya's tough. She's a big girl. If she would have got her hands on that motherfucker, she would have eaten him alive. And for that guy on The Bump just to ask her a question without remembering about the home invasion, it's not his fault, not a big deal. Sonya can handle herself, and she's fine, so no need to rush to her defense. She's fine. I promise you that. Why don't we talk now about Reggie Parks. The legendary Reggie Parks passed away a couple of days ago at age 87. Now, if you're asking yourself who the hell is Reggie Parks is basically the guy that designed the title belts of your childhood, especially mine. I don't even know what my wrestling memories would look like without Reggie Parks. Now, he was kind of a protege of Stu Hart, which I always thought was ironic. The most famous belt that he made look best on the son of the man he got to start with. But he was born in Edmonton, was a wrestler, got taken in by Stu Hart and got a start there in Calgary and stuff, but never had really much of a huge wrestling career. He was most known for all of the championship belts that he designed. And among those is basically every single championship belt from the 80s and a good portion of the 90s. He, in terms of WWE, did all of the belts from the 80s, like the classic Intercontinental, which is my second favorite belt of all time, but it's really 1A. It's really the Winged Eagle and that. I love them both. He also designed the Winged Eagle, which was featured from 1988 to 1998, and had some great champions like Hogan and Savage and Brett and Shawn and Diesel and everybody. So those two belts right there, I think, I can't even imagine what wrestling would look like without them. The classic WWE tag team titles, he also designed multiple versions of the WCW US title, the WCW TV title, and the WCW tags. They underwent multiple renditions, and I think he designed them all. He also designed AWA's belts, the world title, the tag team titles, IWGP titles, Ring of Honor titles, UWF titles. Everything from back in the day was basically created and designed by Reggie Parks. And unfortunately, he passed away at age 87. There was one I couldn't remember if it was in a shoot interview or a podcast, but then somebody pointed out it was in Bret Hart's Hall of Fame induction. I knew there was a Reggie Parks story involving Owen Hart, where Owen called Stu on the phone, pretending to be Reggie Parks, challenging Stu to a fight, and Stu getting all riled up, and Bret telling the story. And for some reason, I thought it was a podcast, but it was in Bret Hart's Hall of Fame speech back in 2006. He told that story about Reggie Parks that poor Reggie wasn't even a part of, but it was Owen impersonating him. But he is a true icon, a true legend, and somebody that was very, very instrumental to what professional wrestling looked like in the 1980s and the 1990s. Without him, I shudder to think what some of these belts would look like. Just great shit. So anyway, rest in peace. 87 years old, true legend, true icon, and it's a big piece of wrestling history now gone. So condolences out to Reggie's friends and family and fans. Before we start getting into the television shows, we're going to talk a little bit about Raw and preview what they've got set for us on Monday. We'll talk a little bit about Dynamite this past week and their rating and preview what they've got set for for Saturday this week. There is no Dynamite on Wednesday. And then we'll get into some SmackDown and some Rampage stuff. Do me a favor if you could, too. Smash the thumbs up button. It would help, and I would appreciate it. Mr. T, I don't watch much boxing. I don't even really know much about Wilder or Fury. Who am I supposed to pick in that? Fury? I don't know. Yeah, AJ, I agree. The Sonya thing was cringe, but nothing to really get upset or worked up over. It was just a mistake. Not a big deal. Haven't you ever made a mistake of... I said something the other day, or not the other day, this was recently. I was at work, and I was making fun of kids' names because there was some parents in with a family, and I can't remember what the kid's name was, but it was some weird name for a boy or whatever. And this is one of those like trendy names or whatnot. And I was like, they got this fucking kid named what's his fuck or whatever. And then one of my waitresses, she goes, oh yeah, that's my nephew's name or whatever. And I'm like, sorry, that sort of thing. Like just kind of eat your words, foot in your mouth, not a big deal. No harm, no malice intended. Just, bad coincidence. And that's all. Happens to the best of us. And that fella should not be attacked by any asshole wrestling fans. That's for sure. Anywho, before we get into all that stuff now, let's talk a little bit about AEW. Excuse me. Let me take a little sip of my Stella Artois before we move on to this subject, shall we? So, Tony Khan and AEW has ruffled some panties. Now, first of all, the first one that happened was, I think it was Thursday, or it was earlier in the day yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Both of these tweets might have happened yesterday. Their first one was posted by AEW, and all it was them sharing a Variety article chronicling or detailing WWE's new competition, AEW, and discussing AEW and their momentum and some of the people they signed and how WWE hasn't had competition in the last 20 years, that sort of thing. And said, oh, finally they've got competition. It was an article that made AEW look good. So AEW's social media Twitter page shared the article. I think you know where I'm going with this. The responses are just have to be read to be believed. So, of course, you scroll down. The most common one was my favorite. Oh, it's exhausting reading this shit. It's the same thing when fans get pissed when somebody posts a pro AEW thing. You're like, oh, you're paid by AEW. It's like all they've got. It's all they got. So all they have here is they say, boy, shouldn't you be spending time focusing on your own product rather than wasting your time and energy posting shit like this? Wasting your time and energy? Do you have a phone? Do you have social media? How much time and energy does it take to click share? Watch. Share. Is that a lot of time and energy? Doesn't take a lot of time and energy for me. Took less than 1 second, millisecond. By the way, shout out to Brian Zane, who's on my phone right now, who just liked something I tweeted. That's all you have to do. Share. It's not wasting time and energy. It's not focusing on your own product. I don't know if you fucking noticed, but AEW pre-announces their entire cards for Rampage and Dynamite before we ever get there. They got their shit together. They are focusing on their own product. You know who's not? Them other guys. Vince and Bruce and that barrel of monkeys they have over there who don't. Now they're starting to advertise a little bit. We've got some matches set for Monday. Some good ones set for Monday. So they're trying to do a little bit better with that, and I'll give them credit for it. But most of the time, most weeks, especially this past summer when they didn't have Monday Night Football breathing down their necks, you didn't know what the fuck was happening. The show was going to go live in 2 hours, and they haven't announced a single match on social media. And everything they did is just impromptu and rematches and rewash and rehash redundant nonsense every fucking week. AEW sets you up. They sign off Rampage or sign off Dynamite by rolling through what you're going to see next week. They are looking ahead. They are planning shit out weeks in advance. Taking 1 second to click share is not taking the attention away from their product. And I highly doubt that Tony Khan is in charge of AEW's Twitter page. They probably got a dude doing that who has nothing to do with the creative direction, has nothing to do with the push or de-push or promotion of anybody. He just shared an article. Fans went nuts. The very same fans that claim that the AEW fanboys and the AEW crazies, which believe me do exist, I've seen them, they claim that those are the unstable ones. But tweets like this kind of disprove that narrative. They ain't any more unstable. You're no more stable than they are, basically, is what I'm saying. So when fans like to say, oh, they're bad on both sides, yeah, they are. And I think both sides try to claim that the other side's crazier than they are, but they're both equally crazy. But all they did was share an article that talked about AEW and how they are now a major legitimate contender and competitor to WWE. It was an article focusing on them, so they shared it. If somebody made a big article on me, I'd share that. I don't understand. It's like the complaints are so stupid because what it really comes down to and what it really boils down to is what I've repeated 100 times before, is that it's not really a case of you thinking that they are not focusing on their product. It's you twisting yourself in knots to figure out a way or figure out a reason why it's not okay for AEW to do this, but it is okay for every promotion in history to do it. When really, you should just be honest with yourself and say you don't really like AEW and pro AEW posts annoy you. I can see the truth written all over your face, when people get mad about like this stuff. That's all it is. That's all it is. You just don't like it. And you're falling up your own ass to try to figure out a reason why it's not okay for them, but okay for everybody else, when really it's just your kind of anti-AEW bias, which may have been developed out of so much pro-AEW stuff that annoys you. And that's where I think we're at here. And I think that's why it's kind of like a really dangerous place and a road we don't want to go down. I kind of used to be like that. And that's why I kind of feel like I know what some of these fans are thinking and their thought process, because I've talked about in the past how this channel was really kind of born out of anger and frustration to TNA fans, convinced that Vince is going to be out of business by 2012 and he is fucked 6 ways to Sunday. And there is no way that he's going to be able to compete with this far superior product, and just going on and just gargling the balls of TNA to where I let it bother me. And I shouldn't have, but it birthed this YouTube channel. So I don't regret it. However, I kind of understand what it's like to have other fans shape your opinions about a wrestling company. And that's simply what's happening here. So many people coming out, and they try to be logical about it, but they can't hide it. They can't hide how they really feel. They just don't like AEW, and they try to make up bullshit to make it seem like what they're saying makes sense. It doesn't. You just don't like them. Stop twisting yourself around. It's fucking stupid. Clicking share is not taking time, energy away from their product. You got to be a goddamn fool to think that. And then Tony Khan dumps a little gasoline on that fire after Rampage. He tweets out this. Now remember, next week, SmackDown is moving to FS1, and they're billing it as a supersized SmackDown. It's going to be 2.5 hours, not just 2 hours. But for a half an hour there, they're going to be going head-to-head with Rampage. So Tony Khan tweeted out this. I saw you're doing a half an hour head-to-head with us. I can't wait to finally beat your main show head-to-head. It's been a long time coming. See you next Friday. Which is funny. He basically wants to take advantage of SmackDown going to FS1, thinking the numbers won't be very good over there, and that he might be able to, at least in that half hour anyway, get a better rating than them, draw a better number, and maybe beat them in the demo. They got a legitimate chance to do that, because the FS1 shows usually aren't much, but I think WWE is going to try to stack this one with a Brock appearance and a couple of other big matches. So it probably will turn out to be a good show, and I'm curious to see how that goes. But of course, when Tony tweets that, more of the same. You should focus on your own product. What is with you guys? It doesn't take any more than 10 fucking seconds to tweet out, aha, WWE, we're head-to-head, we're going to beat you. It's just competition. I don't understand why this angers so many people, and they get so unbelievably butthurt about it. And for some reason, anything like this, or any tweet or post that's even remotely pro AEW, some people can be so incredibly fucking argumentative about everything. And for these responses in the Tony Khan tweet I put on Twitter last night, I'm like, this tweet, like I said, will disprove this narrative that AEW fans are the crazy ones, because you can see people losing their minds. You can see the true misguided, directionless hate that lives in their heart for Tony Khan. They do not like him. This is just a goofy ass. He kind of reminds me of like an Eli Manning type of guy that just happens to be running a wrestling company. Just some sort of like aw shucks dork, but he's doing a good job. Like AEW, I think, is on fire right now. And he's a guy that clearly cares, and he is a good employer. He's paying his people, and he wants to make this company a success, and he is all in. He is balls deep in this shit. He's not phoning it in. This isn't some project that his father has given him to run. Like, he wants to do this. This is his fucking baby, his creation. So he's all in on it. He wants to, maybe some people say, oh, you shouldn't tweet stuff like that, whatever, but to act like this is taking away from their product and their focus is diverted. Give me a fucking break. I can understand if an 18-year-old says this, because they don't know jack shit about what real competition is. But if you're an older wrestling fan and you actually have memories of WCW, of ECW, of WWE, of TNA, of the AWA, if you have memories of any of these promotions, for you to pretend that this is not okay basically just proves exactly what I'm saying. You don't like AEW, and you just can't say it. for some reason. It's okay to say, I don't care. I'm not going to be offended. You can fucking write all over goddamn Twitter, I hate AEW. Go ahead, shout it from the fucking rooftops. You ain't offending me. So I don't know why people are so like against admitting this to themselves. You know, ECW never shut the fuck up about all those companies. They were constantly taking shots at them. WWE with the Billionaire Ted skits. WCW giving away the results of Raw. DX invading Nitro. There are so many instances and examples throughout history. Cookiegate of TNA. TNA taking the cookies to WWE. You know, one of our nice listeners here who I think fucking blocked me on Twitter, having some sort of argument with him today, Antoine, who was basically trying to sell to me that every single other wrestling company in history had a reason to take shots, but AEW shouldn't. They are the one and only and sole lone exception to the rule that has never been different ever in wrestling's history. Only AEW shouldn't be doing this because they're not competition. They don't have the same fans. The fuck they don't. They're a wrestling company. Of course they do. The fan base, you know, there's definitely a tribalism going on. I'll agree with that. But even the biggest AEW haters tuned in and watched CM Punk's return. They watched Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega. If they didn't, I don't even know how they can call themselves wrestling fans. And I can speak on this because I lived through the Monday Night Wars. I lived through WCW and WWE. I carried the WWE flag, admittedly. However, I wasn't stupid enough to pretend, like so many others do with AEW, that WCW was inferior and they're a goddamn joke. I can't look at the NWO and the sold-out arenas and the ratings and the numbers and the pay-per-view buys that company is doing and bullshit myself into thinking they suck. That takes an incredible amount of ignorance, and I wasn't that dumb. And here on the same side with AEW, you see the same. No matter what AEW does, no matter how great it is, no matter what sort of momentum they build, you are going to have fans that are going to claim and try to tear it down. And I just think that's a little bit absurd. Even back in the day, even as anti-WCW as I was, the NWO was awesome. I took notice of Goldberg. I'm like, that guy's fucking over. You know, they had wrestlers there, DDP, even some of the washed up guys like Savage and stuff were doing some good work. I wasn't foolish enough to bullshit myself into thinking that WCW wasn't worth watching. I wanted WWE to win the war. I was more on their side than WCW's side. But it's not like I didn't watch WCW. It's not like I said, oh, their product is a joke. No, their product was good at times. They had their moments. They did some great things. You know, so like I understand what it's like to pick a side. I get it. But I would have never gotten to the point where I would completely spend most of my time arguing against any pro AEW or pro WCW, I should say, point. Because that seems like a huge waste of fucking time. So you can't pretend, even though both companies, even though WWE will claim, oh, AEW is not competition because we're sports entertainment. Bullshit, motherfuckers. If they're not competition, then why the hell are you having a supersized SmackDown next week? Why is it an extra half hour? Why? To fuck with AEW. Of course it's competition. It's two wrestling companies who have wrestling fans. Now, I know one wrestling company is vastly different than the other. I love Excalibur's tagline that AEW is the home of professional wrestling. I think that works. They should go with that. That's a hell of a lot better than where the big boys play. The home of professional wrestling is a great tagline, or a great tagline for any wrestling company, especially when you have WWE out there claiming that they make movies and they're sports entertainment, and these guys are not our direct competition, yet they are making moves to stunt the growth of this company that supposedly is not competition. AEW might say the same thing. Oh, we don't care about WWE. Yeah, you do. Because you're tweeting stuff out. You're watching the ratings. When you beat them in the demo or something, you go crazy about it. I don't think either one of these companies should pretend that the other doesn't matter. They matter very much. And it matters now. A company matters more now to WWE than any time in the last 20 years. It hasn't been since WCW that a company like this has been this much of competition for WWE. Even when TNA was at its highest point, it just they didn't have that like big TV deal, and it was just weird, and it was in the Impact Zone, and even though they did great shit, they were poorly managed, poorly owned. It was such a discombobulated mess over there. They never felt stable with a focus and a direction. AEW does feel like that. So I think that when you have a company that's making this type of noise and making this type of buzz and carrying this type of momentum, why wouldn't you boast or brag about that? Now, you can debate whether or not, Tony Khan is an idiot for doing this stuff or whatever, but, to act like they're obsessed with the WWE to the point where it's affecting their product, boy, you got the wrestling knowledge of a goddamn gerbil if you think that, because we've seen that happen before. It's already happened in history. When you want to see a company become overly obsessed with another company, I can think of more than one example of companies that were a hell of a lot worse than AEW. AEW is not overly obsessive. They take shots. They're very, I'm sure they're very, I don't want to say concerned, but they're mindful, I guess, of what WWE is doing at all times. They're keeping their eye on them, that sort of thing. Typical shit that you would do in competition, but in terms of being obsessive, I don't see that at all. Obsessive is what ECW was. Obsessive is when what made ECW famous was basically just shitting on the other company. I've brought up this before too. Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't become Stone Cold Steve Austin at the 1996 King of the Ring when he said Austin 316 is going to whip your ass. He became Stone Cold Steve Austin in Paul Heyman's basement when he was ripping on WCW and Eric Bischoff and Dusty Rhodes and Mongo McMichael and everybody there that fucked with his career. Every promo in the ring, WCW or WWE wrestlers would be mentioned. Devon Dudley would do the People's Elbow. You had the BWO. Everything they did was a reaction to what WWE or WCW was doing. They were trying to take shots. They were trying to get noticed. They were trying to compete while WWE and WCW slugged it out for the big time. Every wrestling company has done this. AWA did it. NWA did it. Every company boasts that they're the best. Every company puts down the other. Every company takes shots. This is nothing new. If anything, I'm happy that it's back. It's been a long time since we've had companies being able to fuck with each other. And to let this bother you is incredible to me. And it makes me question if these fans were ever fucking hugged as a kid or something. Like, why are you no fun? Why are you so fucking unimaginably one goddamn dimensional boring? Have some fun. It's been the first time since WCW was around that we got another company out there that says we are here, boys, let's play. And since then, they've brought on some incredible free agents. CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole weren't handed to AEW by Vince McMahon. They chose to go there, and they won't be the last. And the fact that we have all of this back again, and even though, yes, it's not exactly what the Monday Night Wars were back in the day, it sure as shit is the closest thing we've ever had to that. So to reject this, to hate that there's another company out there, to root for their downfall and hope that they don't succeed for the sole purpose of being able to brag to the fans that annoy you. The same people that were talking about AEW wasting their energy with these tweets, I think you're wasting your life acting like that, if you ask me. So AEW and Tony Khan tweeting out those things was not a big deal, but of course the panties ruffled and went directly up the asses of so many butthurt little bitches. Grow up. Anyway, Monday Night Raw on Monday has got a big tag team match announced. First of all, they got a Big E confrontation with Drew McIntyre. I don't think they have officially announced the match for Crown Jewel yet. I'm assuming that will probably come Monday. By the way, this past week's Monday Night Raw drew 1.86 million. I don't think that's that bad. I think that's probably okay, considering they've got Monday Night Football to contend with. So not a horrible rating there, but I think if WWE can get it into the 2 million range, they're going to be super happy with that. So we'll see what they do this week, but they're stacking up the show, Big E and Drew. And also they've got a huge tag match set in the women's division with 4 Hall of Famers. My God, it's Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. On paper, that match looks fabulous, but I just have one question. Huh? Remember that draft we had? Is it just me, or does this match make the draft look awfully fucking dumb? What did they hammer into our heads for both nights of the draft? Every 5 minutes, what did they say? The changes don't take effect until October 22nd night after Crown Jewel. Hammered it into our heads. It's still stuck in my head, and my ear's still fucking bleeding from that. And here you got this match with Sasha Banks, who wasn't even drafted, was drafted to SmackDown. She's just jumping over to Raw for some reason. Why not? And then Bianca Bel-Air and Becky Lynch, who were both drafted to Raw, but the changes aren't supposed to take effect until the 22nd. So what the fuck are they doing there? The only person that should, out of that match, that should be on Raw on Monday is Charlotte. That's it. So why do they go out of their way to tell us about these changes not taking effect on a certain date, only to break that rule the very next goddamn segment? And they were doing that during the draft and last week and this week too. You know, everybody that's drafted is already back on the show or is already on their show, even though the changes don't take effect. They had people being drafted from Raw to SmackDown that were on SmackDown and came out and talked to the crowd. I'm like, you just said the change. I can't. So it's nothing against the match on Monday. WWE needs to do what they have to do to stack up a big card here. But what exactly is the point of the draft? I mean, are they basically making it between now and Crown Jewel, there's just no fucking rules and everybody can just do what they want, but then after Crown Jewel, changes take effect and everybody's got to stay put? I guess, but that doesn't make any damn sense either. So I just don't get it. I don't get it. That makes me so fucking annoyed. So anyway, we've got that big match set for Monday. We'll review it after the show. Should be a lot of fun. Dynamite this week is shaping up pretty good too. Dynamite was a bit down in their rating, drew just 1.05 million, so still over a million, and I was kind of saying that should be their like bottom resistance point. They probably don't want to dip below that. Did have a baseball game to worry about. They were down a little bit in the demo as well, and I think did lose to WWE in the demo for the third straight week now for Dynamite. But a really good show. We watched it together on Wednesday, and I guess we're going to be missing the next couple of Wednesday night watch-alongs because Dynamite is bumped to Saturdays. Now, 1 week from tonight is the card we have set for Dynamite. 4 matches I have written down. All look really good. We've got Dante Martin taking on Malachi Black. That was set up this past week. We've got a AAA tag team title match between the Lucha Brothers and a masked tag team. We've got Bryan Danielson versus Bobby Fish. And the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament bracket will be announced. Now, last night on Rampage, they announced a World Title Eliminator Tournament with the finals taking place at Full Gear. So I think the way that works is the finals just take place there and the winner gets a future title shot. They don't get a title shot that night, correct? So you can probably still book Kenny and Hangman at Full Gear, and then the Eliminator Tournament person gets the winner, faces the winner there, correct? So we'll see who's in it. I wouldn't even know who to predict at this point in terms of an Eliminator. I think like somebody like Daniel Bryan or Adam Cole or CM Punk would be great. You know, one of the 3 big new ones, but who knows who will be in it? We'll find out Wednesday. NXT, like I said, I still have not been able to get too much of a look at the new NXT. I've watched very little of it. I am in love with Braun Breaker. A lot of people are loving that Italian fella, and some of their gimmicks are pretty trippy apparently, but like I said, I haven't been paying too much attention to NXT 2.0. I'll try to get better about that. We do have Halloween Havoc coming up on October 26th, and that is going to be Tommaso Ciampa defending the NXT title against Braun Breaker. So Braun Breaker looks ready. This guy is insanely good. That voice, you want a friend? Get a dog. He's just fucking great. He's Scott Steiner and Rick all rolled into one, and he's 23 goddamn years old. I don't know how you don't put him over here. It feels like this was the trajectory all along. They wanted an NXT kind of legend or veteran to pass the torch. I think that's what Joe was being used for. Joe got injured. They replaced him with Ciampa. It feels like he's going to drop the belt here. That's pretty quick. I mean, just hot shot and Braun. We're hot shotting a lot of things lately. It's been a term that's been tossed around a lot in the past few weeks in professional wrestling, but it looks like they're about to crown them some Braun. So despite the stupid, ridiculous, mind-numbingly fucking dumb name of Braun Breaker, he's just the type of guy to be so good that you can look past the name. So we'll see if he winds up winning the title or not, and I need to start taking a little bit closer of a look at NXT 2.0 when I have time. Before we get into SmackDown and just running through last night's show real quick and wrapping things up with Rampage, let me cruise back over here to the chat I know I've got some super chats to knock out, and I want to apologize. Now I can't remember who it was, but last week when I was going through, when I was doing putting the podcast up in audio form, I noticed, I think Spaz Phoenix was one of them. I noticed a couple super chats that I missed, so I'm very sorry. I want to make sure I don't do that this week. Divine, I got your happy birthday, Eddie Guerrero. And there's Spaz with $10, man. Thanks. AEW gives us Rumble in the Bank on Dynamite. Why can't WWE give us TLC and a cell? Damn, I'm actually surprised they haven't done TLC and a cell yet. I guess they could still if they made it a really high cell. It is a high cell now. Hang the belt up there. Maybe like how the Ultimate X thing had like the X cable in the middle hanging above the ring. Maybe something like that. I'd be into it. Rumble in the Bank and TLC in a cell. Why not? AJ Daniels, thanks, dude, for the $5 and good to see you back. I get a kick out of fans who have no life just losing their minds on the internet. I mean, it's sad. I mean, losing your minds on the internet over the most trivial shit is just more funny than anything else. And AEW and Tony Khan tweeting out that stuff, just reading those responses, and I'm like, what a world we live in. What a world. Chris Miner, what's up, dude? Thanks for the $5 as well. When AEW, WWE fans get upset at the rival company doing well, I wonder how bad WWE and WCW fans would be if it had Twitter in the late 90s. I've speculated on that many times in the past. If there was a wrestling Twitter in the 90s, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that my generation would be any better. You know, everything is hindsight, you know, and like how I've been debating about, and like basically the reason I feel like I can speak so well on this competition type of stuff is because I did live it and I did kind of mature. And sometimes you grow out of these certain lines of thinking, and there's a whole new generation of fans now that didn't get a chance to have the competition stuff back in the day. We did. We got WCW versus WWE. We got Nitro versus Raw. It was a fucking blast, but you still chose sides. And I think if there was a Twitter back in the 90s, the fans would be just as bad as they are now. You would see some ridiculous things being said. I'm sure I probably had a bad take or two back in those days. It's the way it is. You know, for the past 10 years on this channel, I've been, I don't want to say defending, but I've been, defending John Cena. And from day one, I've said, you fucking kids don't understand what makes you so angry and mad and frustrated right now. You're going to grow to understand why this was done. You can't see it now because you're too angry and too in your own fucking teenage head, but eventually you're going to understand. And I've gotten countless tweets, YouTube comments, emails saying good mic work. I was once one of those kids, and now I kind of see where you're coming from when it comes to John Cena. Not because I've changed your mind or anything, but because you've matured. You know, I'm not taking credit for that. That's just what happens when you get older. And you start understanding things a little bit better, and you start looking at things with a little more clear of a view. So the fans now who have never experienced and weren't around or born or too young to remember the WCW and WWE feud, now they've got it in AEW, and they're just taking sides and they're being crazy, not realizing how much pro wrestling in general is benefiting from having a company like AEW come around. They're too focused on, you know, just tearing down the other side because that's for some reason important to them. It's not important to me. And I think the reason it's not important to me is because I used to fucking be like that. Now, like I said, I did not like WCW, but I wasn't foolish enough to pretend that they didn't know what they were doing a little bit, and they weren't putting on some good shows because of the numbers they were drawing, the houses, the NWO storyline, the Cruiserweight division, the mega stars they had there, Goldberg getting over. You know, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't calling him Goldberg Olivier or WCW Mud Show Wrestling. I wasn't trying to bullshit myself that they were some low-rent T-shirt company nonsense. No, I was honest with myself, but I still didn't like them, you know. But now, as I've matured and I look back to those times, up until a couple years ago when we didn't have AEW, I longed for those times. What was once bitter feelings towards WCW is now deep love and nostalgia. You know, where I love to go back and watch WCW pay-per-views, where at the time, like the show we're going to watch tomorrow night, that was during the middle of the WCW, WWE stuff, and I was not much of a WCW fan when Halloween Havoc 97 aired. I just was really kind of anti-WCW, but I would still watch their show and still enjoy when they would have a good match or good matches or a good show. I just might not, like it very much because I'm, WWE fangirl or whatever. So all of that stuff is okay. But I think after the fact is kind of when you tend to realize how great all of that stuff was. And if we ever get to a point where we're down to one wrestling company again in the future, the same fans that were so butthurt over anything pro AEW are probably going to say to themselves, man, I kind of would like to go back to those days because wrestling was fun. At least it was fun. At least, even if the arguing and shit is stupid, at least it gives you something to engage with fans about and talk about and debate about, that sort of thing. So part of me thinks that a 90s wrestling Twitter would be very fun, and part of me thinks 90s wrestling Twitter would be an absolute fucking nightmare. Especially back then, think about how bad Twitter is now in the cancel culture era and shit like that. Think about back then. When, a lot more words were very, very more, lot loosely tossed around, and you could say a lot worse shit, and it would be bad. It would be really bad. It would be super racist. It would be super homophobic. It would be all that stuff, and it would just be plastered all over Twitter. It would not be a pleasant place, Chris. So even though it would probably be equally as bad, it might even be a touch worse. It would be a touch worse for sure. Did I miss any other duper supers? I don't think so. Worldwide Entertainment. That's WWE. What does W and WWE stand for again? That's the craziest part. Company being so anti-wrestling, it's the very first, or it's the second word, right? It's the second word in their damn initials. My God. Mike Witt, you were a WCW guy until Austin 316 was born. And the funny thing about WCW was back in the day, I didn't really have anything against them. It wasn't until Nitro started and Bischoff was being such a prick. That's when I really started being like, okay, fuck these guys. But at the same time, you couldn't ignore how great the NWO is. We're just like now, if you, for some reason, want to be a hating asshole towards AEW, you can't sit there and watch Kenny Omega and Daniel Bryan and pretend it was a bad match. You got a few marbles loose up there if you think that. So you got to be honest with yourself, while at the same time, understand what you're looking at. But back in the day, prior to that, I loved WCW. Back before they were even WCW, when they were still the NWA, 605, Saturdays. I'd be in front of the TV a lot of nights, especially in the summertime. I don't know what it was, something about being, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old in the summertime on Saturday nights watching wrestling on TBS, just something about it. And I had no issue towards WCW prior to the move to Mondays and the head-to-head boom, and that's kind of where they were forcing the fans kind of to pick a side. So that's when I got really into it. But before then, I enjoyed watching WCW. I enjoyed watching Austin and his run is with the Hollywood Blondes and TV champion and the Dangerous Alliance and all that stuff. Good shit, man. Sorry, just reading through some of these comments. All right, I think I'm down at the bottom. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I did not. Yeah, the King said that to Goldust on Raw, I think. Yeah, he did. He said it a couple times. He said queer and he said the F words. Yeah, Lawler. Tell you what, when it comes to the next dark side of the ring, do one on Lawler. Anywho, why don't we move on now to SmackDown and Rampage, and then I will probably get out of here in just a little bit. SmackDown last night was a pretty good show. I didn't hate it. I am not too impressed with the Queen's Crown tournament so far. I think it's kind of a fucking joke, which is disappointing because I was really looking forward to it. But aside from that, I thought the show overall was pretty good. Now, next week, we got to remember, SmackDown airs at a special time on FS1. It's being bumped for something, either baseball or hockey or something. So they're going to FS1 next week. They're going to go on a half an hour later than normal, and the show is going to be 2.5 hours long. Now, this will set up a head-to-head matchup, like we said, for a half an hour against Rampage. So just looking at the numbers next week should provide a lot of mature, rational Twitter discussion when those numbers come out. Looking forward to it. Anyway, the show opens up with a pretty fun contract signing for Crown Jewel. Of course, it's going to be the triple threat: Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch. Becky has got her announce table set up on the ramp. Bianca is the only one in the ring, and Sasha Banks, for some reason, is just standing on the announce table. So they're all talking smack. Bianca finally gets on both their cases. They're like, you talk all this shit, but I'm the only one in the ring. Your bitch ass is out there, and your pussy ass is out there. Why don't you come in and do something? So finally, they all get in the ring. They start brawling. Bianca Belair gets Sasha and Becky. I don't know how she does it. She gets them set up basically in like double KOD position. She's got them both set up for it. And I'm like, no way she's going to hit this on both of them. I don't even know how that's going to work. But she nearly does it. Sasha winds up falling off and laying on the table that's in the ring. And then Bianca KODs Becky through the table, through Sasha, and kind of stands tall there for the segment. So I guess the contracts didn't get signed until later on in the night from what I remember here, but the segment was pretty good. I thought all three women looked amazing. Becky looked so good. So did Sasha. So did Bianca. These three are stars. I'm curious what their ring gear is going to look like at the pay-per-view. It's probably going to be a beekeeper suit, but I'm hoping that the match is good. And honestly, I don't think you need to see a title change at Crown Jewel. Bianca and Becky are both on Raw now. So I think Bianca has got to get that one-on-one victory back versus Becky Lynch, and I think you can continue that on the Raw brand after this match. So I would figure some way out of this, either have Sasha Banks win and take the title back to SmackDown, and then I don't even know what the hell Charlotte's going to do. What the hell is Charlotte doing at the pay-per-view? Do we even know yet at Crown Jewel? She could drop the Raw title and send it back to Raw. That could always happen, but I think what's going to happen is Becky's going to retain, and her and Charlotte are going to do the swap. That's what it feels like. But contract is signed. That match now is ready to go for Crown Jewel. We got to talk about the king and queen of the ring. Now, the queen of the ring is called the Queen's Crown Tournament. King of the Ring is just your standard men's King of the Ring, a bracket of 8, with the finals being held at Crown Jewel. Now, the first match is up first. We've got Sami Zayn taking on the worst dad ever, Rey Mysterio, in a King of the Ring opening round match. Now, what's interesting about Sami Zayn's involvement in this is that, are they not spoiling that he's going to lose next week? Because from what I remember, Sami doesn't do the Saudi shows because of his Syrian descent or whatnot. Some sort of an issue there. I don't think he's done one yet. So I don't even know if I would have put Sami in this, because doesn't it kind of spoil? Well, I mean, I guess the casual fan isn't keeping track of if Sami's going to work the Saudi show or not, but it was the first thing I thought of. So you would think that even if he's victorious here, he's not going to go to the finals. So he's going to lose next week to Finn Balor. So anyway, Sami gets the win here after asshole Rey Mysterio is yelling at Dominic. I guess Sami Zayn takes the turnbuckle pad off. Dominic's at ringside. He tries to get back up on the apron and put the turnbuckle pad back on. Rey sees this, gets mad at Dominic, and allows himself to get rolled up and pinned by Sami Zayn. 31-year in-ring veteran. Loses with a distraction roll-up. Right on. Good job, Rey Mysterio. Now you can continue making your son's life miserable on Raw in a couple of weeks. Then we get the women's tournament kicking off. Queen's Crown kicks off on SmackDown with 2 matches. We've got 2 more set for Monday on Raw. First match up is Zelena Vega versus Toni Storm. Now, Toni Storm was great. We're happy to see her on the SmackDown brand. However, they haven't done jack shit with her yet, except for in a couple of her promos, she's talked about liking some 80s music, like Bruce Springsteen and shit, which is awesome, but that's not a gimmick. That's not a character. You can't just say that over and over, and that's going to get you anywhere. So they haven't done anything with her, and she loses clean in 2 minutes to Zelena with a code red. After all of that talk about doing a Queen of the Ring tournament, how many years have we speculated on this now? I'd say at least 3. There's been a lot of talk about it. Every wrestler who's asked about it supports the idea. It's been a long time coming. We've done the Women's Royal Rumble. We've done the Women's Money in the Bank. We've done Women's Hell in the Cell. This is the one thing that's missing. It's been coming for a long time. They finally agree to do it, and then they literally just throw the ugliest looking bracket that they can up there and knock out a couple of 2-minute matches. Really, after all of that, You know, you don't want to build this tournament as something that's actually important to win and have, you know, think about back at the first ever King of the Ring. You know, Bret Hart went through hell. Imagine if his matches were 2 minutes each before he got to the finals. Wow, what a hard road it was to the crown, you know? Like, if you're going to do this Queen of the Ring, then put some quality women in it and give them some time. Zelena and Toni Storm deserved a hell of a lot more than 2 minutes, and Toni did not deserve to lose. She should have won. And, like, just give them some more time. Like, what the fuck? And then the next match came later on. That was no better. Carmella taking on Liv Morgan. They were supposed to wrestle last week. The match never happened because Carmella debuted the face mask thing. So she put that on here. Yeah, she put that on her face here. The match actually does happen. Again, another short match, and Carmella wins. Now, Carmella was one of our early picks to win the whole damn thing. They've got Shayna and Dana Brooke tomorrow night on Raw, and I forget what the other match is. Help me out. They're running back Shayna and Dana Brooke for some fucking reason because Shayna took about 2.5 seconds to make Dana Brooke tap out last week. So naturally, let's do it again in the King of the Ring, or the Queen's Tournament, excuse me. So on Monday, Shayna is going to defeat Dana Brooke again in the Queen's Crown Tournament in a match that's probably going to be shorter than the 2 shortest shit matches we just saw here on SmackDown. So I think they are not doing a very good service to this Queen's Crown. I think these matches should be a little bit longer. I think these women should really have to fight for this. In the end, I'm hoping that Shayna Baszler just mows through everybody and chokes her way to a crown. But you know, if they want to, you know, and if that's the case, then I guess it really doesn't matter if you have long matches here or not. But this tournament is going to go by like that. I mean, Cesaro and Balor got tons of time on SmackDown. Why did the women get like 2 minutes each? This goes back to the Divas days, you know, back in the Diva matches days on Raw. The matches would literally be 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes long. All the women that are on the roster now are capable of wrestling a lot longer than that. So I kind of thought that was shit, and I think it's making the tournament look bad. I honestly don't give a fuck who wins the Queen's Crown, but based on the brackets, I feel like Shayna has got to be the one. Yes? It's got to be Shayna. Got to be Shayna. Better be Shayna. I don't know. Yeah. Toni Storm buried by Vince because she was a Triple H hitman. Or she was NXT Triple H hitman. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's going to affect her too much. She's just got to find a niche. WWE just has to care about her, write some meaningful shit for her. The music thing, I don't get it. I think it's cool. I like 80s and 90s music too. But at the same time, you know, she needs to show more range, I guess. We just need more from Toni Storm. So nothing is truly over in the women's division. You can lose a bunch of matches in a row and always come back. But in that particular match, you know, Zelena Vega going over there, whatever, we'll see. If it turns out to be Shayna Baszler, then all this stuff will be moot, so it doesn't matter. We had Kevin Steen, soon to be Kevin Steen. He got beat up by Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss again. That happened. Then we had a Roman Reigns promo. Roman Reigns is out there with the Bloodline and Paul Heyman. Roman still very suspicious of Paul Heyman and wants Heyman to admit that he's responsible for Brock Lesnar's free agency. And Heyman begins to grovel. Oh, gee, my tribal chief, I've been with your family for 40 years, and, you know, I might have my issues, but nobody's ever accused me of being stupid. And don't you think that if I had some grand scheme with Brock Lesnar that I'd be showing you my cards right now? And basically saying, look, you're wrong, Roman. If I was going to turn on you, I would do it this way. It's kind of like when OJ wrote the book and said, I didn't do it, but if I did, here's how I do it. So he basically just says, Roman, it wouldn't make any sense for me to be against you or be scheming against you. And Roman kind of lifts Heyman's chin up because Heyman's kind of got his head down. And I love the way Roman just lifts his chin up. He's like, it's going to be all right, man. And he goes, I just want you to look in the camera and tell Brock. Look in the camera and tell Brock that. And so Heyman did. And Heyman said, Brock, you've met your match at Crown Jewel. You're going to go down, yada, yada, yada. Basically just did everything Roman Reigns asked him to. But Roman, during all of this, I don't think anything was, you know, I don't think he was very convincing. Roman still seems, despite everything that was said here, that he seems still very suspicious of Paul Heyman. And it's interesting, too, because Heyman did that interview a while back where he was asked about this storyline. And he said that there's going to be a lot of twists and turns in the road. So what do you guys think is going to be going down at Crown Jewel? Is he going to be turning on Roman Reigns? There is a possibility we could see that. We could see a double turn. I suppose. Roman has been pretty shitty to the Usos, up until the end here, and their family. I can't see them straying from him, but if the Usos did want to turn on Roman, they sure as shit would have a hell of an excuse. They could be like, Brock isn't going to abuse us. Brock's not going to teach us, or treat us like that, I should say. And hell, you could even have Roman come out of that being the babyface with Heyman and Brock and the Usos now together. That seems kind of a bit far-fetched. I feel like the Usos would stick with Roman, but they did spend a whole year of Roman completely abusing the both of them. So, there would be a reason there. And for Paul Heyman to say there's going to be twists and turns along the way, and Brock being a free agent plays into this as well, because theoretically Brock could win the title here and then just hop over to Monday Night Raw, and Roman's got no way of getting his belt back. So do you think there is any sort of a chance at all at Crown Jewel of Roman dropping the belt? I say there is a chance that he drops the belt. I think that Roman Reigns, for his legacy, absolutely needs to defeat Brock Lesnar definitively and convincingly, 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring, clean as a baby's ass at some point in his career. But Brock just came back. He's got the ponytail now. He's got the flannel. We haven't seen him in a while. Last time he was in the ring, he lost. I'm not sure if I'm beating him again. So I think only 2 options are likely. Number 1, either Brock wins the title, or Roman wins the title, wins the match, retains the title in a way that you could set up a rematch, perhaps. Maybe a disqualification. That could be possible. They've done DQs before. This is going to be a stacked card at Crown Jewel, so they could probably get away with it if they wanted to. I'm sure you'll have a clean finish in the McIntyre and Big E match. We're getting a Hell in the Cell match on this show. So if you have to have a schmaz or something to be able to do it again later, maybe you do. But I just don't know where you go beyond this if you have Roman just beat Brock clean. Well, then what do you do? I think we got to see something major go down here. Paul Heyman's got to turn or something like that. I don't know. I would like to see some big sort of swerve or whatnot. If Heyman turns on Roman and aligns with Brock, I don't think that would be that huge of a swerve because Roman's already been suspicious of this, but I still think it would be very cool if it wound up happening. So we'll see. What do you guys think? What do you think? Roman or Brock at Crown Jewel? If Brock had already been back for a while, he's had 3 matches and he's slaughtered everybody that he's faced, then I would say, yes, absolutely, Roman needs to beat him and continue his run. But Roman's been champ for over a year. Brock's back. I think there's a chance. So we're going to have to, at some point, do predictions for this. I guess next week we'll hammer out some predictions for Crown Jewel. But I think there is a chance that he could retain the title, and he could win the title, Brock that is, but if he doesn't, then you have to wonder what Brock will do. If Brock comes up unsuccessful at Crown Jewel, where does he go? He's a free agent. If he gets fucked over by Roman or the Usos or Paul Heyman, he's probably going to say, I'm on SmackDown, I want another shot. And then if you do another match, maybe that's when you do the turn with Heyman or whatever. Maybe that's where whatever twists along the way that Heyman's referring to, maybe all that takes place then. So it could go either way, we could see, but one thing I just don't expect to happen is to have Brock beat 1, 2, 3 in the middle. Because he's already lost last time he was on TV. He's Brock. He's Brock. When's Brock dropping 2 matches clean in a row to motherfuckers? Doesn't often happen. So I think he's got to be built back up into Brock before he goes down. So we'll see how they handle that at Crown Jewel. Should be interesting. After the Roman and Heyman promo stuff, we get a pretty big match announced for next week. Naomi is fed up. She's so pissed at Sonya Deville. She comes storming in the dressing room where her and Adam Pearce are, and she tells Adam, look, just trade me back to Raw because she's just disrespecting me. And Sonya says, nope, that's not going to happen. You actually do have a match next week here on SmackDown, and that match is going to be against me. So we've got Sonya Deville getting back in the ring. for the first time in over a year next week on SmackDown against Naomi. I thought there would be a bigger build to this. I thought, like I said earlier, I thought Naomi was going to snap and beat the piss out of Sonya Deville, and that would lead to a match. I was hoping that Sonya pushing Naomi's buttons to the point where she goes apeshit will actually help Naomi transition into a little bit less glowy, I guess, of a character. I'm not into the glow. Her slogan is feel the glow. I don't feel it. I don't want to feel it. I want to feel a different side of Naomi. That came out wrong. You know what I mean? I don't want to feel Naomi, but I want to see a different side of her. I think that she's such a strong woman that she could be a believable badass. Like if she just snaps and beats the hell out of somebody, I'd like to see Naomi take a stab at being that way. So we'll see what happens in their match next week on SmackDown. Hopefully it'll be longer than 2 minutes. The main event match we got on the show was another King of the Ring King of the Ring opening round match. First one was Sami Zayn beating the worst dad ever. This one is Cesaro taking on Finn Balor in an opening round match. They gave these guys a decent amount of time here. I loved this match. It was so fun to watch. In the end, Finn Balor wins with the coup de grace, and he advances in the tournament, and he will be taking on, I lost the brackets. Balor takes on the winner of Sami and Ray, which will be Sami. So it'll be Balor and Sami next week on SmackDown. And then on the Raw side, we've got Ricochet and Xavier, right, in the bottom bracket. And then up top, we've got Kofi Kingston and Jinder Mahal. So we might get a Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods semifinal in the King of the Ring. What do you think about that? I would love to see that. Who is your pick based on everybody that's in here now for the King of the Ring? I think a lot of people obviously have Xavier Woods on their radar, but he's been politicking for that. Do you want to give the crown to somebody that just keeps saying, I want it, I want it, I want it? You know? So there might be some fans that might be critical of that. They did do a deal I saw on social media where Shinsuke Nakamura actually relinquished his crown to be able to crown a new King of the Ring, which I don't think that's how it works. A lot of people were mad that he didn't get a chance to defend his crown, but does anybody get a chance to defend their crown? Maybe in some of the more modern King of the Rings, they've done that. But like back in the day, a lot of times after you win a King of the Ring, you're never even in another one. So to me, that's not a big deal. And I don't like that it's a crown that can be defended, you know, that sort of thing like we saw earlier in the year with Nakamura and Corbin and shit. So I don't like that either. I just think the crown, the King of the Ring winner should just be the King of the Ring winner for that year. And then next year, you just get a new winner. Don't defend the crown. Don't do all of that. That's stupid. But just keep it normal, because I think you have a chance to have some really good matches here and a great final regardless of who you go with here. Some people think it might be Jinder Mahal. I don't think so. I think Kofi should beat Jinder and Xavier should beat Ricochet. And you get Kofi and Xavier semifinal match with Kofi putting them over. That's what I would do. And then you've got Xavier and hopefully Finn Balor in the main event, in the finals. And if that match does in fact happen, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm putting Finn Balor over in that situation. It's kind of like this past week on Dynamite with Hikaru Shida and Serena Deeb. You know, we watched it together, and when they had that trophy for Hikaru Shida out there just waiting to present to her after she wins her 50th win, I was like, I'm putting Serena over in this match. She should win this, not Hikaru Shida, and she did. So I think maybe, you know, Finn Balor should be the King of the Ring, but also, you know, I think you need to do a balance of, I think, one tournament winner being a heel, one being a babyface. This isn't Saudi Arabia, so I almost feel like you could go either way. On the women's side, I kind of feel like it should be a babyface, you know, for the women, because they're probably going to make a big deal about, you know, the women's match and tournament final and all that stuff. But then again, you could see that with the men as well. The women, I think Shayna Baszler would be an excellent queen. She could just be a no-nonsense Queen Shayna, whatever. The men, you could have a little bit more fun with it. And if it did turn out to be Xavier Woods winning it, you know, it would be a feel-good story. It would give the third member of the New Day who has not won a world title something to win, you know, but there's the politic aspect of that as well. And they might just beat Xavier in the opening round there and have Ricochet in advance, and Ricochet could go to the finals to take on Finn Balor. That would be a match. I think it's safe to say it ain't going to be Sami Zayn in the finals unless something has changed and he can go to Saudi Arabia now. But I think it's going to be Finn Balor in the finals on the SmackDown side. And I'm happy with anybody on the Raw side other than Jinder Mahal. As long as it's not Jinder, I have a feeling it could be. Jinder is the exact type of heel that is tailor-made for a king gimmick, kind of like Corbin. He'll just be an obnoxious piece of shit, and he'll be so horrible, and he'll take it so fucking seriously, and he'll think he's a real king and all that nonsense. For a heel, he actually would be a good guy to be the king of the ring. I just don't want him to. I'd rather it be a babyface, and on the babyface side, it leaves a whole lot of good candidates. I mean, we've got Finn Balor, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, and Ricochet. I'm happy with any of those picks, to be honest. So we'll see. We'll see who the finals turn out to be. We'll find out in a week, I guess. And the final segment on SmackDown was the big Seth Rollins and Edge confrontation. Edge, of course, is infuriated about what happened last week. Seth showing up at his house and going in and drinking his orange juice and taking a shit in his toilet and all that stuff. So Seth is in the ring. He's waiting for Edge to get there, and he tried to explain last week, look, I said I knew you weren't going to show up because you always lie, so I decided to go to your house. It was just a misunderstanding, blah, blah, blah. And that's when he's running his mouth. They cut to the back, and a big SUV pulls up. It's Edge. He hops out. He's pissed. He makes a beeline for the ring. Big brawl in the ring. They're fighting on the outside. Seth is getting tossed around everywhere by Edge. Edge has got him in the ring. He breaks off the piece of metal from the chair and is about to do the thing to Seth's face, and Seth is able to scurry away and escape. And Edge then gets on the mic to let Seth know that this big challenge that he's issued to Edge, allowing Edge to have any match that he wants, no disqualification or TLC. I just want to face you one more time. Edge says, no problem. I accept your challenge. That match will be inside of a Hell in a Cell. WWE, I would like you guys to make a note. This is how you do a Hell in the Cell match. You book these matches when you have a feud or an issue that warrants it. When you have a deeply personal issue, when you got somebody walking into your own home and making fun of your daughter's schoolwork and drinking you orange juice, you'd better damn well believe that match needs to be in a Hell in the Cell. What you don't need to do is make this thing a stupid fucking pay-per-view where it's just there on your calendar and you just got to hope that you've got some feuds worthy of a Hell in the Cell match. That's not the way it should be. This is the way it should be. Hell in the Cell matches should be reserved for any pay-per-view at any time whenever you have an issue like this that needs to be resolved, blown off, whatever. This is what it's for. This is great. They're going to do a Hell in the Cell at Crown Jewel. Awesome. It's going to be big and obnoxious and red, but it is going to be a Hell in the Cell, and it might be a chance for poor Seth Rollins to redeem himself from the travesty that took place 2 years ago with The Fiend and that whole fucking nonsense, something that Rollins recently chronicled and detailed in the Broken Skull sessions with Steve Austin on the Peacock. So this is a chance for them to maybe right that wrong. I think Edge and Seth are going to perform beautifully in a Hell in a Cell. I think the match is going to be good. I think it's going to be awesome. Don't even care who wins really at this point, but the match is on Hell in the Cell. And I couldn't be happier that they're finally booking one of these things when you have an issue that needs it. Now, unfortunately, they're also probably booking it largely in part to Crown Jewel, making sure that that audience gets a WrestleMania level show, which so far on paper they are. With the addition of this Hell in the Cell match now, it's going to be quite the show at Crown Jewel. So it's looking pretty good. It worked out for me as well with Dynamite being bumped the next 2 Wednesdays. That means that during the week of Crown Jewel, there will be no Dynamite the night before. Crown Jewel's on a Thursday. Dynamite would be Wednesday before, but it's bumped to Saturday due to the NHL or whatever. So that actually works out for me for scheduling. With my other job and my work, I'll be able to be off on Thursday, watch Crown Jewel, come up here, talk about it, that sort of thing. We'll be doing all of that at Crown Jewel. And next week at some point, we'll run through all of our predictions for this dirty, dirty, dirty blood money pay-per-view that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. Last night's hour-long Rampage was fun. Packed show, action-packed, easy to watch. Loved it. CM Punk had a really fun match with Danny Garcia, who they really seemed to like. Punk was back in the long trunks. They got big plans for Garcia, man. He's been doing so much stuff, and now he gets to be in the ring with CM Punk. Pretty cool finisher as well, with CM Punk delivering a picture-perfect big pile driver on Garcia and then locked him in the Anaconda Vice for the win. Garcia taps out. Punk looked great. That was fun. Lucha Brothers defeated the Acclaimed in a really fun tag encounter. Jade Cargill squashed Sky Blue in a match that wasn't that great. She continued the attack after the match, and then Thunder Rosa came out to make the save. So Thunder Rosa working with Cargill, that could be fun. Hopefully Thunder can teach Jade a thing or two in the ring. The main event was pretty good too. Ricky Starks taking on Brian Cage. Blood in this match, although it was very obvious. I mean, the entire world noticed Ricky Starks blading, but he was a little bit bloodied up, had a lot of help from Team Taz, but in the ring, or in the end, was able to defeat Cage and retain the FTW title. And hopefully that whole situation is squashed and done with now, and these guys can start moving on to other things. All in all, a really good show. Fun little show. Like I said, they also announced the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament. The brackets for that will be revealed this week, or this coming Saturday, 1 week from tonight, I should say, on the Saturday Dynamite. And the winner of that will get an AEW title shot. And the finals will take place at Full Gear. So they gave us a bunch of info last night, a lot of good matches, big tournament announced, and a lot of matches set up for this week's TV. Now, next week on Rampage, a bunch of matches already announced. We've got CM Punk versus Matt Seidel. So Punk will be back in the ring. Take your bets on if he'll be in short trunks or long trunks. We've got the Bunny taking on Ruby Soho, and the Inner Circle, Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, and Chris Jericho taking on Junior Dos Santos and America Top Team. There you go. That's going to be a stacked Rampage next week. And like I said, for this week on Dynamite, we got Malachi Black versus Dante Martin, Lucha Brothers defending the AAA tag titles, Bryan Danielson against Bobby Fish, and the bracket for the Eliminator will be announced on Wednesday. So we are shaping up for another pretty good week of wrestling. Monday Night Raw on Monday does not look horrible. Next Friday's Rampage and next Saturday's Dynamites don't look that bad either. And I guess next Friday's SmackDown, the big supersized SmackDown, is going to be your go home, right? Yeah, that'll be the go home to Crown Jewel, will be next week. So lots going on next week. I don't know how we're going to handle yet next week's podcast. Probably won't do a regular Winged Eagle next week. I might do one on Sunday because we've got an AEW Dynamite on Saturday. I don't think I'm going to be home next Saturday to watch that, so it's kind of pointless to do the podcast before. Yeah, at least right now, I'm going to plan for a Sunday Winged Eagle next week. I'll let you guys know here on the channel, social media, or whatnot if that gets changed in any way, so stay tuned. Not a very good like count for this Saturday, so if you guys could tap that like button, I would appreciate it. Population 420, good to see you. Thanks for the $5. I'm on my way to Fresno Save Mart Center for WWE Super Show House Show. I haven't been to a house show in years. Right on, man. Have a good time. I got a chance to meet that fella at SummerSlam, and I have never been to Fresno, man. That is going to be fun. Take some pictures. Tag me in them on Twitter. Curious to see how that looks. Right on. Anybody got any word on that Game Changer Wrestling PPV that's going on? Roman's going to hold the title till 2023. I like it. You think there's a swerve coming? I hope so. I think there has to be with Brock and Roman. There's too much you can do. There's too much history. There's too much going on with Heyman. There's too much distrust. There's too much resentment. All that stuff. There's just a lot there. Plus, Brock has got this kind of new attitude to him. He's winking in the camera. He's got a fucking ponytail. He's dressed like a lumberjack. I love it. You know, I'm always in favor of doing whatever allows more story to be told, you know? So I love Roman. I'm with you. I'm with, who said that? I'm with Danny. I don't want Roman to lose the title until the next fucking Olympics. But, you know, if you find yourself in a right situation to where it really does set up awesome stuff, if he drops the title, then drop the title. You know, I'm all for just doing whatever makes TV better. So Roman Reigns is my favorite thing in WWE, but that doesn't mean he's not my favorite thing if he doesn't have the title. So I'm kind of split on it. When I become a fan of somebody, usually I don't want them to lose the title, until I die, but that's not realistic. So you got to do what's best for storylines and future and potential matchups down the road, that sort of thing. I'm all just about the preservation of, of the business. So whatever you can get more mileage out of, that's generally what I'm going to lean towards when, I'm predicting winners and shit like that. Dodgers are in the playoffs, yes, as far as I know. Not paying too much attention to the baseball playoffs very much, although I think San Fran and LA are both in, so California is well represented. MLB. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's Dodgers and Giants right now. Top second, 2-0. LA Giants lead 1-0 in the series. Braves beat the Brewers. That's a 1-1 tie in that one. All right. Yeah, when it comes to these teams that are left, I don't give a shit. I literally, of all of these baseball teams left, I don't have a single favorite. I've never liked the Braves. I've never liked the Giants. I've never liked the Dodgers. The Brewers, for a long time back in the day, were in the same division as the Detroit Tigers in the American League. Don't like them either. They're national now, but don't really care. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever wins, wins. Let's go Giants. I think I like the Giants back in the day, like Will Clark, those Giants. But then in later years, didn't care too much about them. The Barry Bonds years. And then one year, I think since I've been living in California, it was like 2012 or whatever. The Detroit Tigers, my hometown team, made it the World Series, played the Giants and got fucking swept. So I just don't care much for the Giants. I've seen them play a couple times at Petco Park at Padre games. They bring quite the fan base with them. Or quite the fan base is already here, I should say. Oh, sorry to hear that, Russell Austin, but I'm glad you are here. And I'm glad to always be a haven for any any mental health troubles or struggles anybody deals with. If you're able to tune in to a wrestling show and that helps you, and then makes me feel good. So glad you're here, man. But anywho, I'm going to get out of here for the day. We will be back tomorrow. Like I said, we're going to be doing a Halloween Havoc 1997 watch-along, so that should be fun. So bust out the cold ones and hang out with me tomorrow night. We'll watch some wrestling together, shoot the shit, and talk. And then on Monday, we will be back immediately following Monday Night Raw to talk about the King of the Ring matches, the big tag match they have set, and hopefully the Crown Jewel card will be basically rounded out by then. Hopefully Monday we'll have a really good idea what we're looking at, so we'll run through everything for Crown Jewel coming up this Monday. So you guys have a good rest of your Saturday night. Enjoy Game Changer Wrestling if you're watching that. Enjoy baseball if you're watching that. And I will catch you tomorrow for